While the world patiently waits for Nintendo to talk about upcoming Nintendo Switch games for 2020, I mean, is Pikmin 3 Deluxe really going to be the only game? That doesn't mean that games aren't coming out for the system. And although August was kind of a slack month, September actually is a pretty good month for Nintendo Switch owners. There's some really cool third-party games, some indie games, and even some potential hidden gems coming out in the month of September. So in today's video, I want to talk about the 10 best upcoming Nintendo Switch games for the month of September. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about the 10 best Nintendo Switch games for the month of September. Wake up, wake up, wake up, it's the first of the month, and there are actually 2 games coming out on the Nintendo Switch on September 1st that you might want to have on your radar. The first game is MX vs ATV All Out, coming to us from THQ Nordic. Now, if you followed the MX vs ATV series, you should pretty much know what to expect from this. There are various dirt bikes and ATVs that you can customize, and you race around on various courses. Now, MX vs ATV All Out originally came out on the Xbox One and PS4 like 2 years ago, and I actually reviewed the Xbox One version of the game, and on day one it definitely had some issues. There was performance issues, there was issues with the physics. It definitely wasn't a very polished experience, but I did hear that since the initial launch of the game that THQ Nordic did put additional patches in the game to make it a much better experience. Now, I thought the core game itself was actually pretty fun because these games can be very fun. There's online racing, there's local racing as well, so it looks like it's going to bring a lot of features to the Nintendo Switch. I might sort of wait on this game to see how the reviews sort of talk about it, to see if it is a better version of the game than initially launched on the Xbox One, but there's definitely potential here with MX vs ATV All Out when it comes out on September 1st. The second game coming out on September 1st is definitely a game that has hidden gem potential, and that is Ori and the Secret of Seasons. Now, when researching this video, I had never heard of this game, but quickly I fell in love with this game because I think it looks really, really cool. It's a 3D action adventure game in which the lead character Ori can control seasons to solve puzzles and explore deeper in these levels. So basically you can make different seasons to sort of solve these puzzles, and it seems like you could change the areas on the fly, which is actually pretty impressive because you gotta think that's really going to impact the gameplay in a wide variety of ways. The combat in the game looks really solid, as well as there's a wide variety of enemies you encounter. It looks like it's going to be a pretty lengthy adventure. They say that there's a very deep narrative in it as well, which, I mean, it's a 3D action adventure game. How deep can we really get? But still, I think this game shows a lot of potential. It looks like a lot of fun, and it looks like it's a very polished experience. I'm kind of surprised nobody has talked about Ori and the Secret of Seasons up until this point. At least I haven't seen anyone talking about it. So this is definitely a game I will be checking out on September 1st because I think it holds a lot of potential. Another game I think has a lot of potential that once again nobody is talking about is a game called Under the Jolly Roger, which is coming out on September 3rd. Now, Under the Jolly Roger is an open world pirate action RPG game that gives me some serious vibes of Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. And Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is actually my favorite Assassin's Creed game, so I'm definitely looking forward to checking out this game. You can upgrade your boat, you take out enemy boats, you visit various colonies to do trades with them or take over them, and besides the boat combat, there's actually on foot combat in the game as well that looks pretty decent. There's a big kraken in the ocean as well, and I think this game is actually going to be pretty cool. The graphics of the game might not be up to snuff with something like Assassin's Creed 4, but this is a game that is clearly a sort of cheaper budget title coming in at just $20 for the Nintendo Switch. I'm definitely really looking forward to this game. Like I said, I think it has a lot of potential, and since Assassin's Creed 4 is my favorite Assassin's Creed game, I will be checking out Under the Jolly Roger when it comes out on September 3rd for your Nintendo Switch. On September 4th, NBA 2K21 is hitting the Nintendo Switch, and yes, I review the NBA 2K games every year because, well, I'm a basketball fan. Now, NBA 2K21 definitely has some new improvements to the game, mostly within the gameplay. There is a demo available on the Nintendo Switch eShop right now if you want to check out the game, but playing the game, there are definitely some major changes done to the gameplay of the game. The first thing would be the shot meter. Now, the shot meter has been completely revamped for NBA 2K21 2021, and honestly, it kind of took me a little bit to get used to because it's definitely very different. Whereas in previous games, you would just use the second analog stick to pretty much control your shots, they sort of went away from that with this, putting more emphasis with the second analog stick to be on ball handling, which I actually kind of like because it's much easier to pull off different sorts of crossovers and things with the second analog stick pretty much being dedicated to the ball movement, whereas the shot itself is a little bit different. Another major change I noticed within this game was that the blocking feels a lot tighter when you're going up to block shots, and it just feels a lot more realistic. It's more based on height and perception and where your player is, more so than just a statistic. Now beyond that, of course, there's going to be various game modes within the game. There will be some microtransactions out the ass as well, as you see with every NBA 2K game, but I always just sort of steer away from that because I'm more interested in the actual basketball. And I think from the actual basketball perspective, NBA 2K21 will be another great experience on the Nintendo Switch. I didn't really notice much upgrades in the graphics or anything like that. We'll definitely have to see the full game before we come to that sort of conclusion, but NBA 2K21 seems to have made some gameplay adjustments that actually make for a better game of basketball. This game will be available on your Nintendo Switch on September 4th, and make sure you have a lot of memory card space because it's going to eat up a lot of it. Also coming out on September 4th is Paradise Killer, which is a game that really caught my interest. Yeah, there's a lot of games coming out within the first week of September that are pretty cool for your Nintendo Switch. Now, what Paradise Killer is essentially a first-person mystery game in which you're trying to find a killer in paradise. You gather evidence, you interrogate people, all that sort of stuff. You know, it reminds me of Phoenix Wright with a twist because it definitely has sort of a neo-retro style look to it. Obviously, it's a bit more flamboyant and over the top than a Phoenix Wright game is, which is actually saying a lot because Phoenix Wright games can be very over the top, but I like this. It seems like there's a bunch of different investigations you can do. There's hidden areas that you can find on the island as well as you're exploring the island looking for evidence and things like that. I think this game looks pretty cool. It's a game that, once again, I haven't heard of before, so I was definitely very intrigued by the look of this game. Paradise Killer comes out on the Nintendo Switch on September 4th, and if you're looking for a Phoenix Wright experience, I think this could be really good. I could barely put together Labo, so the next game, RPG Maker MV, will be a game that I probably will personally skip, but it comes out on your Nintendo Switch on September 8th if you're looking to make your own RPG game. Of course, that's the whole point of this game. You make RPG games within the tools that are used within the game. There's character voices you could do, you could write your own story, place enemies. It's really a robust game that you could do a lot of fun things with. But I think the coolest thing about this is the fact that there's something called the RPG Maker MV Player, and you can actually use this to download this app and then play other people's games for free. So you don't even have to download and purchase RPG Maker MV in order to experience the games that are made within this. So realistically, you could play a bunch of free RPGs that are made in RPG Maker MV without having to actually buy the game. Now, of course, if you buy the game, you can create your own sort of stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. Like I said, this isn't a game that I will check out because I don't have the time or patience to make my own game. But if you are into that sort of stuff, RPG Maker MV does come out on September 8th, and I will probably check out your creations with the RPG Maker MV Player. On September 10th, Hotshot Racing hits the Nintendo Switch, and good God, this game looks awesome. It has definitely vibes of games like Outrun and Virtual Racing and Daytona USA, and that, my friends, is a very good thing. You remember 90s Arcade Racer? I don't think that's ever coming out, but we have Hotshot Racing, which looks absolutely fantastic. There are 16 different tracks, there's a bunch of different cars that you can play as and unlock, there's online racing, there's a leaderboard system as well, there's various online modes and local multiplayer modes such as a cops and robbers mode, and of course, just look at the aesthetic of this game. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It definitely reminds me of the Virtual Racing that we got in the Sega Ages collection on the Nintendo Switch, but it definitely looks a bit more modern. I love these big chunky polygons. I think they look absolutely fantastic. The game runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second as well, which is great for a racing game, and this game just looks absolutely fantastic. This is probably one of my most anticipated games for the month of September. I have been watching this project for a very long time, so I'm super stoked to see that Hotshot Racing will be coming out on the Nintendo Switch on September 10th. One of the weirdest games I've ever seen in my life is finally coming out on the Nintendo Switch with Fight Crab on September 15th. And you know what? I really want to play this game. I've actually put in for a review copy of it because it's just so bizarre. It's so weird, but it looks so cool. It is essentially a physics-based fighting game where you're playing as giant crabs, and there's a bunch of different crabs that you can play as. You can upgrade your crabs and a lot more stuff. You're basically playing within these different city landscapes. It really reminds me sort of the War of the Monsters game that came out on the PlayStation 2, or even the Godzilla fighting games that we got on the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube as well, which were just awesome experiences. I love sort of over-the-top games like this where you're a large creature in a big city, so this is really resonating with me. I think Fight Crab looks like a lot of fun. It's probably not going to be the most polished fighting experience. I don't expect this game to show up at EVO 2021 or anything like that, but you know what? Maybe it should, because it's really sort of doing something different within the fighting genre, which you haven't seen in quite a while. Fight Crab will be available on your Nintendo Switch on September 15th, and we can compare crabs online. I swore I wasn't going to talk about this game, but they sort of reeled me back in, and I'm kind of mad about it. It's WWE Battlegrounds, coming out on September 18th. Now, of course, we're going to have to chop up this footage and put pictures up because WWE likes to copyright claim everything from this game. But yes, it's a very over-the-top game. I don't really like the graphical style of it. I think it looks kind of silly, but what's really reeling me back in is the roster of this game, because the roster of the game is very, very impressive. They have Doink the Clown. Like, how out of left field is Doink the Clown going to be in this game? There's a lot of classic wrestlers that they're including. Like, I don't know, man. I want to hate this game, and I've been hating this game ever since it was announced because I thought it looked stupid. I didn't like the graphical style. It's like some sort of hybrid, chibi, realistic style that I just don't think really works, but the roster of characters actually kind of has me impressed. The gameplay itself, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, we all know what's going to happen here. I'm going to end up reviewing it because I love pro wrestling anyways, but WWE Battlegrounds is coming out on September 18th, and I'm kind of softening my stance on it. And the final game that has my interest in the month of September for the Nintendo Switch is This is the Zodiac Speaking, coming out on September 24th. Now, I'm really into big murder mysteries and stuff like that. I think serial killers are sort of fascinating to sort of study them, and I think this game is really, really cool looking. You're basically, of course, trying to track down the Zodiac Killer, who was a serial killer that was never caught. You're basically experiencing the story from a perspective of a person who survived an attack from the Zodiac Killer themselves. You're looking for various clues in a first-person perspective. There seems to be some sort of paranormal stuff within the game as well, as you can listen to voices of the victims. There's a bunch of different endings in the game as well, and I think the aesthetic of the game is just very nice and clean. It has definitely that 70s sort of vibe to it in terms of the graphics, the different areas you're going into, and I think they did a good job of sort of captivating the whole Zodiac Killer thing. I'm really interested in this game. I definitely will be checking out this game, and if you want to finally crack the case of the Zodiac Killer, you could do that on September 24th on your Nintendo Switch with This is a Zodiac Speaking. Alright, so those are the 10 best Nintendo Switch games for the month of September 2020. Now, I think there's a really good variety of different games here. Of course, there's going to be more games announced from third-party companies that will just randomly come out in the month of September, because that's what companies like to do. There'll probably be some more indie games as well, but as far as games that have been announced, these are the games that I definitely have on my radar. So let me know in the comment section down below, what games are you interested in? What games do you think you're going to pick up in the month of September? And potentially what games I might have missed out on. Maybe I missed out on something cool. Maybe Nintendo announced a game that's coming out in September, because, you know, they probably should talk about games for the year of 2020. I mean, year's kind of wrapping up there, boys. Might want to hop on it. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.